Hello, welcome to Marooner's Rock, where the geek out would be an awfully big adventure. I'm Ahmed, and with me is...
Lisle Wilkerson. Hi, everybody.
And Lisle,
yes.
Lisle is a voice actress and an interpreter, as well as, from what I understand, also a radio personality.
Yes, you name it, I do it all.
I don't want to name it at this point, because it's just gonna be weird. But, alright, so... I guess we could just start at the beginning. How did you break into this eclectic career?
Okay, yeah, sure. Well, first of all, most of my career has been in Japan. So I grew up in Japan. I moved there when I was 5. I went through the international school system, and then I came for a year of college to the States. Had complete culture shock because I didn't know. I was like, oh, maybe I'm not really American after all. And that actually led to me going back to Japan and getting into radio at the age of 19. So I was in radio for a few years, and then at first as a staff, I helped to take care of the morning show for the big radio station in Tokyo called J-Wave. I thought, I think I love music. Music has always been one of my biggest passions, so I thought I'd love to try hosting shows. So after a lot of work, I finally started working as a DJ for radio, and then that led to me getting into voice acting. And the interpreting part of it also actually came from radio because I would host the show in English and Japanese, but then I would also have a lot of guests, international guests that would come, or international celebrities that would come on the show, artists, and so I would do the interview with them in English, and then I'd have to flip it back into Japanese for the listeners. So that whole flipping back and forth became very kind of, old hat to me. So that's how I got into interpreting. And then I also do a lot of correspondent work for like the Academy Awards, Grammys, Golden Globes, and Emmys, and so that kind of stuff, same thing. It was really through radio and my love of music and just doing the whole bilingual thing for a very long time. Yeah.
Well, okay, you mentioned a culture shock, so I just want to know, has that lessened over time?
It has. However, when I moved back to Japan, or moved back to the States, which was around 2008, I had not even been to visit the States for, I want to say 16 or 17 years. It's a very, very long time. So when I first moved back, it was constant culture shock. Like I felt like it was like sensory overdrive. It was like, ooh, I kind of felt like Eddie Murphy in that movie Coming to America. I used to always think of that. I was like, that was one of my favorite movies back in the day, and I thought, I kind of feel like that sometimes. So obviously the culture shock has lessened because I've been here a longer period of time now, but every once in a while I still have these kind of culture shock moments, yeah.
I can understand that. I noticed that besides your voiceover work, you also had a part in Lost in Translation.
Correct, yeah.
And just to clarify for those who may not know, what role did you play in?
It was Sexy Businesswoman. So it was like 2 scenes with Bill Murray speaking lines. And yeah, it was a really wonderful project to be a part of because I had actually met Sofia Coppola prior to that, 10 years exactly prior to the whole Lost in Translation movie being filmed. And most people probably know that Lost in Translation is based loosely on her story, right? On the Sofia Coppola's, how she was dating, engaged, married to Spike Jonze. So he would go over to Japan all the time to produce these big commercials for big companies like Toyota or whatever, and so he was always going over to Japan, so she would go over with him. And that is really what started her whole love of the Japanese culture and the Japanese people. So when she was dating him or married, I'm not sure which, but I actually met her because I was interviewing some friends of hers, Sonic Youth, which is a band from the UK. So I was interviewing them at the Park Hyatt Hotel, which is also where Lost in Translation takes place, and getting ready to do an interview with them. And then in bounces in this girl, like, hi girl, hi, this kind of thing. I'm like, who is this chick, man?
Sofia Coppola, if you're watching, this is her story.
And you know, I was like, who is this? I had no idea who it was. And then I found out later on that it was Sofia Coppola. I was like, oh, okay. And then, so when I found out I was going to be doing Lost in Translation, I was like, oh my gosh, like it was kind of so full circle to me, you know, to be able to work with her again. And she was absolutely amazing. I really enjoyed. She was very, in a way, very quiet, and yet very in control of everything. You know, like she was also very collaborative. Like Bill Murray was always kind of, you know, she would be like, Bill, come here, you know, and then they would kind of like be chatting about a scene or something like, let's do this different. But it was an absolutely wonderful project to be a part of, and I'm so honored.
It was a very good movie. I did.
Yeah, and that's a whole other thing is that a lot of people don't, you know, because some people are like, it's kind of a little bit slow moving, you know, what people enjoy.
It's the art film.
And also Sofia Coppola is a photographer, so the cinematography in the movie, I think it's just
like her
really
father.
well
it's
done.
Really well visuals.
Yes,
Really well visuals. Wow.
Yeah.
Really good visuals.
Yeah. So.
But okay, moving on from that, your main, like a lot of the body of your work, and also I'm pretty sure one of the major reasons for you coming to Fanime Con is your work in video games. Especially and I might be wrong, you're Sarah Bryant in Virtua Fighter, you're Nina Williams in Tekken, and Zafina.
And Christy Montero.
Christy Montero and Zafina. So how did you get into first Crazy Taxi.
Lots of old school games. Yes, I've been around for a long time. Yeah.
But so that's how you started. But okay, of the various roles that you've played in that regard, do you have a particular favorite?
I do really love, I have some favorites, and they're favorites for different reasons. So I really enjoyed one. I also was a part of the Shenmue legacy, as I like to call it. But and just the way that video game was made was completely different from any other video game.
Before its time.
And also just the kind of detail and for me, also the fact that I got to work with some of the other characters, like I worked with Corey quite a few days. We would go to the studio together. So there was that really wonderful synergy that you don't get usually in video games. In Japan, you know, anime people work together and they
It's
record
a
in the studio.
collaborative. That's a rare thing in Western voice acting.
Exactly. But video games in Japan are very much how they're done here, where you just go in and you record your lines. So the fact that I was able to work with some of the other characters was just a really, it was very meaningful. It just made that experience all that much more wonderful for me. I got to work with Eric Kelso quite a bit, and Paul Lucas some, and a lot with Corey Marshall, but also I do I love Sarah Bryant for sassiness. She is, I love her attitude. And you know, of course, she's a very formidable, character, and
it's got a lot of grunt work going on.
Yes. And then Nina Williams, I have enjoyed, being a part of that as well, because I feel like she is this, her description is cold-blooded assassin, and yet she has this vulnerability to her with her situation, her relationship with her sister, and then with her son, and that whole
insane
kind of backstory. So I like that. I enjoy doing multifaceted characters. Someone who comes across as completely strong and just but then also very vulnerable at times as well. So those are always really fun to do. Yeah.
You mentioned that you did Shenmue, and I'm just curious because you may have heard recently they had the Kickstarter for Shenmue 3.
Yes.
And they hit their goal in
like
24 hours.
Yeah.
Less than 24 hours.
Yes.
And so I guess a good question would be, if possible, would you like to come back to the project?
Absolutely. And that whole thing for me, so, excuse me, and also, with voice actors, a lot of times, we will do a game, and then we don't even, a lot of times, know when the album or the, it's going to be released. Exactly. So, and because we're a lot of times having to come up with the next gig just so we can pay our bills, it's kind of like a means of survival for us. So, we're kind of going forward.
You barely have time to stop and appreciate.
Yeah, and we don't get feedback. And for me, I was in Japan, the whole time. So I had no idea until I started getting messages to my website, and then after that to Facebook, where it'd be I'm such a big Shenmue fan, and I was like, oh wow, this, I had no idea that this project I was a part of, impacted so many people from so many different, cultures and countries. So, but then I moved to the States, and I've been able to be a part of the whole con circuit and meeting, people who are Shenmue fans. And it's one of the questions I always get is, when is Shenmue 3 coming out? And
well, now you have an answer.
And now we have an answer, yes. And until the Kickstarter happened, I would always tell them, I have no idea. I never get answers for anything, so I don't know. So the day that the Kickstarter announcement happened, I had actually just finished doing an interpreting job. I got home, I was really exhausted, and I just put my phone down for 5 minutes, and literally I picked it up, and it was Shenmue Kickstarter, all these messages and everything, yeah, and tweets about it, and it was a bit of an emotional moment for me as well, just because I just thought, wow, Shenmue fans have been wanting this for 14 years, and now they finally got this moment. I mean, it's just amazing to me that this whole thing is happening, So, yeah, so I would absolutely be a part of it, yes.
Awesome. You mentioned, the con circuit and everything else, and I know you've also done a lot of major work in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do Japanese fans and American fans, we're all very passionate about our interests, but is there any major differences when it comes to the culture and the passionate interest in our fandoms that you might note?
I think that Japanese fans are just as passionate, they just don't really display that as much.
Not just the level of cosplay insanity.
Well, and with cosplay and stuff like that, and I've talked to quite a few Japanese guests who I've done interpreting for, for various voice actors, whatever, from Japan, and I've talked to them about this as well. And we've talked about how in Japan, when you do a cosplay, you have to do it exactly according to character, or you'll get people coming up to you and saying, that's not right, you're not doing it correctly, you're not representing correctly, so it's very
stickler for
true to, yes, and you have to be completely authentic, and you don't really have that wiggle room to add your own individuality.
Like these people who have the just off the top of my head, a Gundam style mask with a Sailor Moon outfit.
Correct. But this is the thing, but they all, so every Japanese guest that I've worked with has all said the same thing. They're just, first of all, they're so thankful and so honored and just so in awe of how much Japanese anime, Japanese video games have been taken in by the States. They don't really realize a lot of times until they come over here, and then they're just wow, we had no idea, so for them, they're just always just so happy to see that. But then they also talk about how they love the freedom that you get here in the cosplay community, where, like you're saying, you can have a Gundam, mask or face, and then you have like a Sailor Moon, dress or something like that.
I just saw the other day a guy in
Really?
a costume that's like a merger of Spider-Man and Captain America's.
Yeah, but this is the thing. I think that, and I do think it kind of also speaks to the culture where, in this, here in the States a lot, coming from someone who didn't live here I in some ways kind of feel I'm a bit of an outsider, and I feel that like the freedom of that even is wonderful, and I think it kind of adds a whole nother dimension to cosplaying. So I think it's great, and the Japanese guests always love it too. So.
Now you did work on various award shows. I think you said you were like correspondent for things.
Yeah.
So I've got to ask, any surprising moments during an award show where you had to on the fly say something?
Always, so many. So first of all, I think a lot of people don't know that when you do an award show and you're part of, unless you're Ryan Seacrest with E. So with the Academy Awards, we would be, and I kid you not, I would be hip to hip with Ryan Seacrest. He'd be right next to me because our Wow Wow is the company that I
at Channel Wow, I remember.
So and our position is right next to E. So, but with Ryan Seacrest and E, they would have their interviews all scheduled ahead of time, and the reason being because they go on live with everyone, so it's all a live streaming thing. Whereas with us and with me, I would have to wrangle the interviews. So there's a lot of hi Japan, yes. I would have to do anything and everything to get an interview and to get the publicist, because this is the key thing: is you don't go straight to the actor or actress or director. You have to make eye contact with the publicist and kind of get them to come over here, and then they come over, and then you have that 1.5 minute maybe with them to do like the little chat, and talk to them. But yeah, I think some of and I've interviewed everyone from like Kevin Spacey to Benedict Cumberbatch to Jennifer Lawrence, Amy Adams, Christian Bale, and most of them are really, really friendly and just, one of the things I do like the most when I do that is when I can find someone like Kevin Spacey and Benedict Cumberbatch. Those are two of my kind of favorites because they have a very fun and playful and yet kind of naughty sense of humor. And I love being able to work with something like that, just be like, that whole banter thing is so much fun, so yeah.
I guess I could follow up on that with, what are your top 5 favorite moments from
the red carpet?
From the red carpet.
Okay, so one would be with Martin Freeman and Benedict Cumberbatch, for sure. And this would be from the Emmys. And I was doing the red carpet for a TV network called AXN, and they run Sherlock. So this is one of their shows. So obviously I'm going to talk about Sherlock with them. And so we have them, and I'm like saying, so can you tell me a little bit about like the character arc for Sherlock this season? And he was like, well, of course, he's being a like sassy lassie, right? He's like, well, we were thinking that maybe Sherlock was going to get a dog or something, right? And I'm like, Sherlock, I thought you already had a dog. Isn't Martin Freeman your dog? And he's like, or no, I didn't say dog, I said pet. And they were both like, naughty. And I was like, yeah. So that was a lot of fun. Another one that was really fun was at the Golden Globes, and this is with Glenn Close. She was nominated that year for Damages, a TV show that she did for FX. A really, really good show. I loved it. And so I was really excited about having her on the show, or on our, in our show. And so we did an interview with her. Now the interview was just really simple, nothing, it was just kind of like talking about damages, like how's it feel to be nominated tonight, do you think you're going to win, blah, 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 the same old kind of stuff. And then say hi to Japan. So we did that. And then she's walking away from us. And then all of a sudden she makes a U-turn and she heads back to us. And I'm like, what's going on here? And she comes and she is right in front of us in our camera, and she starts singing in Japanese, like in a loud voice, right? She's like, ha, da, and she's doing these motions, she's doing like this kind of dance thing. And the director that I'm working with is like, Lisa, what is she doing? What's she doing? I'm like, I don't know either, and we're just all, of course, we're like, filming this, but we're all just like, what's going on? And then after she finished, she leaned in and she goes, so I was in the a cappella choir, and during my time in college, we went to Waseda University, and I learned the fight song from the university, and I still remember that, so I came and did that for you. And we're just like, ah! She just walked away, and it's like, oh man, I don't know how you're going to top that one, man. That was crazy.
Glenn Close is a treasure.
I love her. And I think one of the things, because people ask me, which do you like doing the best? Like the Grammys, Emmys, Academy Awards, or Golden Globes? And I always tell them the Golden Globes, because the Golden Globes is the one where they serve food and drinks, at the ceremony. So Moe is one of the big sponsors so they have champagne flowing freely from the beginning of the red carpet. So you get some loop-de-loop-de kind of like, and I think this is, the stars are a lot more, they're just more relaxed, and so you just sometimes get a lot more fun moments that way. Whereas with the Academy Awards, obviously...
Everyone's on their best behavior.
And they're all nervous. Like, it's just so much more formal. Even the setup, just because, it's at the Dolby Theater, and so it's just... And then security is just so tight, whereas Golden Globes takes place at the Beverly Hilton, so it's a little bit more... It's just all kind of a little bit more relaxed.
It's a party.
It's a party, yes.
I guess... God, you're giving me a lot to think about. But it's like, so what would be your dream project? In terms of either as an interpreter, as a correspondent, as a voice actress, any of that, what would be your dream project to work on?
I think honestly right now, it would be getting back together with the show with 3 people. And
you heard it, Sega. Make it happen.
Yeah, because we get along. I get along so well with. I love Corey and so many, and Eric and Paul and a lot of the other cast. We get along so well, and ever since the Kickstarter happened a year ago now, we have done quite a few panels, joint panels, where I'll be at a convention, so I'll be there physically, and then we'll Skype in Corey from the States, and then Eric Kelso's in Japan, so we'll Skype him in, and then Paul Lucas is in Singapore, so it's like we'll get all of us together.
Thank God for the internet.
Yes, exactly. But it's just so much fun to, work with them, and so I can only imagine like how. And of course, obviously, it's been 14 years, so we've each had our own journey, things. But I think that it will be, if we all get a chance to work together, it would just be a really, really incredible experience. And so I think that would be my dream project right now.
Right. And I guess in closing, one last question, since the Kickstarter has figured in, so much of fan culture has figured into both this interview and just this convention in general, how impressive is it that with things like Kickstarter and Indiegogo and all these other crowdfunding things, how much more influence fans have in getting major projects off the ground?
I think it's everything. I think that, to have that kind of engagement, I think is, and I am not a per se creator. Like, I didn't create a video game. I mean, like, I come in for voice acting, but I am, I'm more of a higher talent kind of thing, really.
Yeah.
But if I were a creator of like a video game or something, I would just think that would be everything, because you, at the end of the day, when you create something, you want to know that your fans are there for you and that they enjoy whatever it is that you're making,
Yeah.
So to have those fans be a part of the process, I think, is an incredible thing. Like, I just really, I think that whole Kickstarter, GoFundMe, like all these, community funding websites that you have now, I think it's a great way to even get, and if it hadn't been for Kickstarter and for the loyal Shenmue fan base, and I will say, actually, if it hadn't been for the loyal Shenmue fan base first, because that is the number one, but there would be no Kickstarter, and so, yeah, I am all for, I think that it's great. I think that fans are everything, so.
Well, that's a good point for us to end on. So this has been Ahmed Al-Sheikh from MaroonersRock.com, where the Geek Out will be an awfully big adventure at FanimeCon 2016 with
Lisle Wilkerson.
And, well, that's pretty much it for today, and I will see you in the next video.